This tutorial is for 4th grade, Module 5, Lesson 1a. This lesson is the introductory lesson to our unit on fractions. In this lesson, we're going to look at the different parts of a fraction and what really makes a fraction. So here we have a problem that says write a number sentence and draw a number bond to show the shaded part. We have a diagram that shows one whole, and that whole has been broken into 3 pieces. Below each piece is a fraction that represents the piece. In our fraction, the top number is called the numerator, and the bottom number is called the denominator. The denominator tells us how many pieces the one whole has been divided into. So in this case, the one whole is divided into 3 pieces. The numerator tells us how many of those pieces have been shaded. So here, the bracket is showing me that I'm just looking at the first piece, and that's why I have 1 for my numerator. So the first shaded section is 1/3. The next section is also 1/3 because we're looking at one of the pieces out of the whole. And the final section, again, is 1/3. So we can see that the one whole is made up of 3 sections. Each section is 1/3. Whenever we have a fraction that has a 1 for the numerator, that is considered the unit fraction. So in my number bond now, I'm going to show that I have my one whole, and that one whole has been decomposed or broken down into 3 sections. Each section is 1/3. In our next problem, we have a new whole. This whole is made up of 4 sections, but only 3 of those sections have been filled in. To name each section, I would still start with 1 for my numerator, but this time I'm going to use 4 for my denominator because the whole has been divided into 4 sections. So this first section is one shaded section out of the 4 sections that make up the whole. The second shaded section is also 1/4, and the third section is 1/4. Altogether, the 3 shaded sections show me 3 sections that were shaded out of the 4 that make the whole. So we would call that fraction 3/4. So in my number bond, I'm going to show that I have 3/4 shaded, and that 3/4 is made up of 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. My next problem, I have a new whole. This time my whole is made up of 8 sections, and we've paired up some of the shaded sections. So if I look at the first 2 sections that are grouped here, I see that I have 2 sections that are shaded. That's why I have a 2 for my numerator. The whole is made up of 8 sections though, so my denominator is an 8. So these 2 sections are shaded out of the 8 that make up the whole. I have 2 more sections that are also shaded, so those would be 2/8, and then the last pair would also be considered 2/8. Altogether, I have 6 sections that are shaded out of the 8 that make up the whole. So this diagram is showing us 6/8. I'll put that as the number in my number bond, and I'm going to show that I can make 6/8 using 2/8 plus 2/8 plus 2/8. This problem is similar, only I'm starting off with 2 wholes rather than just 1 whole. Both wholes have been divided into 8 pieces, so each section we are looking at would be considered an 1/8. When I look at my first whole, the first 4 sections have been grouped together. So that's 4 sections. My denominator is going to be 8 because that one whole has been divided into 8 pieces. The next group also shows 4 sections shaded. So that's 4 out of the 8 that make the whole. And then when I move into my next whole, I have the first 2 sections grouped, so that would be 2/8 and then one more section, which would be 1/8. Now I'm going to combine all of my shaded sections. So 4 plus 4 is 8, plus 2 is 10, plus 1 is 11. So altogether, I have 11/8. When my numerator is greater than my denominator, that's telling me I have more than one whole. So you can see how it matches the diagram. For my number bond, I'll put 11/8, and then I'm going to show each of those fractions as part of that number bond. So I have 4/8 and 4/8 and 2/8 and 1/8. So that's just showing me that I can take a whole or more than a whole and decompose it into different fractions that all have the same denominator.